Santa Fe, Texas, a peaceful evening, shattered in seconds. Two supercars, a red Ferrari and a Lamborghini, tearing down on Highway 146. Then boom, they slam into a truck. The explosion is so violent, people thought a bomb had gone off. But what looked like a tragic accident was only the beginning of a story drenched in fire, betrayal, and murder. Then, a black Mustang screeched to a halt. Out stepped Dave, a tall, fine man in his 50s. Beside him, his wife Carla, elegant, blonde, beautiful, but trembling. They were dining at a nearby restaurant when breaking news of the accident brought them to the scene. The wrecked cars matched those of their sons. A news crew in a helicopter, covering a shooting in the area, streamed the accident live. When the wreckage was lifted, Carla's worst fear was confirmed. These were her children. She collapsed. Paramedics rushed Carla to the hospital. The horrified bystanders looked on. The cars were scorched beyond recognition. Dave's worst nightmare as a father had unfolded before him, and when the fire was finally extinguished, all hope was gone. The smell of burnt flesh lingered. Dave whispered their names, Danny, Kenny, and froze as 4 bodies were bagged. There's another one, a medic whispered. Where? In the passenger seat of the truck. A policeman approached. Sir, did you know them? Dave's bloodshot eyes turned cold and deadly. They were my boys. Your county failed them. Find me the owner of that truck, dead or alive, and bring him to me. He ran after the ambulance as the bodies were taken to the morgue. At a distance, Detective Rob and Jane observed. What do you think? Jane asked. Rob smiled grimly. I think this is a homicide. Dave rushed to Presbyterian Hospital. His eyes were red from weeping. When he entered Carla's room, she was calm and asleep. He held her hand, whispering softly, Carla, Carla. In her subconscious, she heard him. Her lips parted. Dave, my world is shattered. Don't say that, honey, Dave replied gently. We're in this together. It's our world. No, you don't understand, she murmured. A nurse entered. What's wrong? Dave asked. She's dreaming, the nurse said. Carla suddenly tightened her grip on his hand and screamed, Liar, liar, you killed them. Dave, stunned by the outburst, asked the nurse to sedate her. At that moment, Detective Rob, a veteran of the Santa Fe Homicide Department, entered with his partner Jane. Sorry for your loss, sir, Rob said. If you have a moment, I'd like to ask you some questions. Both cars in the accident were registered in your name. Dave glared at him. 2 cars. Registered in your name, crashing on the same road. Can you explain that? His voice broke into a roar. My children are dead, and you ask about the cars. I gave them those cars 2 weeks ago now. They're coffins on wheels. My wife lies unconscious, and all you care about are the damned cars. I watched my kids burn alive today, praying for a miracle that never came, and you talk about cars. Get out. Rob didn't flinch. He'd faced grieving men before. As he turned to leave, Dave shouted, Find the owner of that truck, dead or alive. Rob jotted notes as they stepped out. Outside, a man tried to push his way into Carla's ward. Dave blocked him. From a distance, Rob watched the exchange. The man leaned in, voice low. Please, he begged. You can't see her. Dave replied flatly. She's sedated. Let her rest. The man muttered something Rob couldn't catch, then turned away. Rob glanced at Jane. Did you see that? Yes, he might matter. We'll find out. They waited. Minutes later, the man came back out. Black pants, white shirt, sleeves rolled, shoes caked in dust. He looked like he'd walked half the city. He bent over, drained. Rob approached. Everything all right? The man looked up. His eyes narrowed. He knew instantly Rob was a cop. I haven't broken any law, he said, forcing himself upright. No one said you had, Rob answered evenly. Just a couple of questions. The man's jaw tightened. Go on. I noticed Dave didn't let you see the woman inside. What woman? The one whose kids were in the accident. Rob's tone was casual, almost routine. The man's stare sharp and angry. Dangerous. Rob raised a hand. Didn't mean it cold. Detective Rob. He paused. And you are? The man straightened, then offered his hand. Kendrick. Rob looked at it, hesitated, then clasped it firmly. What's your relationship with the woman? Rob asked. We're siblings, Kendrick said flatly. Huh, I see. Then why did her husband stop you from seeing her? Kendrick's eyes darkened. Old family rift. Nothing important. Rob let the silence hang. Then he slipped a card from his pocket and handed it over. If you ever feel like talking again, call me. Kendrick took the card without a word and walked off in the opposite direction. Inside the car, Jane buckled her seatbelt and said quietly, "Something isn't right with that family." "Yeah, I thought so too," Rob muttered. "We'll need to dig into that guy's past." They drove back to the junkyard, where the wrecks were being stored. Jane glanced at him. "What exactly are you looking for?" "Not sure," Rob admitted. "Anything? A clue?" He crouched beside the charred hulks, running a hand along twisted metal. "I've never seen anything like this. These cars didn't just burn, they exploded from the inside." He pointed at the torn frame of the Lamborghini. "Same kind of mark here, the Ferrari too, but the truck, it's different." Later, at the morgue, the coroner was bent over the bodies when Rob and Jane stepped in. "What do you think?" Rob asked. The mortician didn't look up. "Something's off. These people weren't burned by gasoline from the crash." He held up a thin wire he'd pulled from one of the corpses. "You see this? It wasn't an accident. Someone placed it there. I found the same thing in the others except for the truck driver." He peeled off his gloves. "We'll run DNA to confirm identities before the burials. But the truck driver, his injuries don't fit. He died before the collision." Rob's voice sharpened. "Can you give me a timeline?" The coroner shook his head. "No exact time of death, but I can say this: he wasn't the one driving that truck." Rob pulled a wallet from the evidence tray and removed the ID. "Stephen," he read aloud, "will contact his family. Send me the DNA report when it's ready." Outside, the night air was heavy with exhaust and silence. Rob licked his lips, his voice low. "You heard the coroner. Stephen wasn't the driver. Whoever took that wheel is still out there. That intersection wasn't random. It was chosen." "What if the cars were insured?" Jane asked. "Who benefits?" Rob shook his head. "I don't think Dave would be stupid enough to put himself in the spotlight. Let's take it slowly." "Okay," Jane said. "Right now, everything is circumstantial. First, we need a motive. Who wanted the boys dead and why?" When they knocked on Stephen's door, his wife answered. The moment she saw them, her face stiffened. She already knew the news wasn't good. "When was the last time you saw your husband?" Jane asked gently. "He left home 3 days ago," she replied, her voice trembling. "Said he had a driving job, but he never came back. We filed a missing persons report at the station." Jane drew in a breath. "I'm sorry, but your husband is dead." The woman broke into sobs. "He didn't want to go," she whispered. "Said it was too risky, but I encouraged him. I told him there's always a first time. He wasn't trained for truck driving." Rob froze. "Hold on, he wasn't a truck driver." She shook her head. "No, but a friend called. Said they needed an extra hand. We needed the money." Rob flipped open his notepad. "Do you know this friend?" "No, but he called multiple times." She handed over a slip of paper with the call timeline. Rob's jaw tightened. "So where's this ghost driver?" He snapped. "Only one way to find out. We checked the CCTV near the accident site. They obtained a warrant and traced the calls. One number kept appearing. Every call originated from Dallas." "Let's go," Rob said. "But first, the company that owns the truck. Then we'll pull the CCTV." Jane nodded. The footage gave them nothing. No one was ever seen exiting the truck. The company check revealed more. The truck had been stolen days before the crash. The GPS tracker had been disabled, but the last ping placed it in a park with no cameras and no witnesses. Rob cursed under his breath. Whoever did this knows how to vanish. They followed the Dallas lead. The phone booth was old, half-rusted, standing alone on a quiet street, not busy. Across the road sat a rundown inn. They searched for surveillance cameras. Nothing. "Whoever's behind this," Rob muttered, "is working hard to erase their tracks." Inside the inn, the owner confirmed it. A man had stayed there around the time the truck was stolen. Rob leaned across the counter, eyes sharp. "Give me a description." The inn owner described the man as a big guy with brown hair, late 30s, built like a football player. With that description in hand, they returned to Santa Fe. An hour after landing, Dallas police called. They had arrested someone. matching the inn manager's account, but the man's alibi for the day of the theft and accident checked out. Rob was running out of leads. He drove in silence until Jane finally spoke. "I think we're chasing shadows." He only smiled, said nothing, and steered straight to the station. 4 days, every lead collapsed into a dead end, but Rob refused to quit. A background check revealed Kendrick had spent 20 years in prison for robbery and homicide. Released on probation just 2 weeks ago, he had also served in the military. Time was slipping away. The funeral was drawing near. Staring at Kendrick's photo pinned to his wall, Rob dug deeper. That's when he discovered Kendrick and Carla weren't siblings at all, just children raised under the same roof. Carla was discharged from the hospital, fragile and withdrawn. Dave drowned himself in alcohol. Rob confronted Kendrick. "You were in for robbery and homicide. Out on probation." "Yes, I'm clean." "Carla isn't your sister. Tell me the truth." "There is nothing to tell." Rob pressed on. "Since you showed up, Carla's life has unraveled. Danny and Kenny died in cars their father gifted them, both killed by a ghost truck driver. That was just 2 weeks after you returned." Kendrick stayed silent. Rob continued. "I saw the video from the party. When you walked onto Dave's lawn, he hated it. So did Carla. And Maria. Or should I call her your mother? Who are you really?" Kendrick's voice was calm. "I told you I did my time. I'm clean." Rob leaned closer. "Criminals don't change, Kendrick. They hibernate. And you look ready to finish what you started." Kendrick's fist tightened. Exactly what Rob wanted to see him crack. From the window, Dave stood watching, his eyes blazing. He had heard everything. Later, while driving back to the station, Rob got a call from the coroner's office. The autopsy report was ready. He parked and skimmed it, but missed a crucial detail that could have cracked the case. Cursing, he tossed the file aside. Another dead end. Jane was waiting at his desk. "Where have you been?" she asked, eyes locked on his. "That family's hiding something old and rotten. If I can find it, the case opens up." She glanced at the reports with little interest. "Rob, it's been 5 days. Let Dave's family bury their children." At the funeral, Rob and Jane sat quietly in the back, watching every detail. Maria Capillario held Carla's trembling hand, while Dave sat hollow-eyed beside them. Kendrick stood outside, barred from entering. When the service ended, he approached the family car. Maria struck him with her walking stick before security shoved him away. Jane whispered, "Kendrick's either obsessed with Carla, or something worse." "Let's visit Maria tonight," Rob said. "You ask about Kendrick, I'll push for the truth." Maria's mansion loomed like a palace, servants gliding through its halls. One of them, Eugenia, had been with the family 40 years. Rob cornered her quietly. Her voice dropped. "Something happened here long ago. Something shameful. People still whisper. Incest." Rob pressed 4 names. She only shook her head. Meanwhile, Jane confronted Maria, who dismissed Kendrick with a wave. "He's just a foolish boy." As they left, a call came in from Dallas PD. An anonymous tipster tied to the stolen truck and the fatal crash had been tracked down. By the time Rob and Jane arrived, the informant was dead, but evidence remained. $100,000 in cash. The background check hit fast. The man had served in the military with Dave and Kendrick. A photo surfaced of the 3 together in Iraq 20 years earlier. Rob's lips curled. Only one man could hand out that kind of money, Dave. But why? Then the final piece dropped. On the dead man's phone was a voice recording. Dave's voice, calm and unmistakable. "I'm sending you 100,000. Do what you can. Make sure it's done properly." Rob replayed it over and over. The money, the deaths, the family secrets. But what exactly was Dave ordering to be done properly? They questioned Dave. He admitted sending money to his old comrade to start a business. "That's not a crime, is it?" he said coolly. Outside, Jane was waiting. "I think we're searching for answers in the wrong places," she muttered. Rob looked at her. "Then point me toward the right one." Across from Dave's home, a man's shouting cut through the night. He cursed his wife, hurling vicious words. "You're no different from Carly, a cheat. I did a DNA test. The kids aren't mine." Rob and Jane hurried toward the house. Just as they reached the door, the woman screamed, "Liar!" Then silence. Rob knocked hard. A woman's voice shrieked inside. "Tell me who." The man roared. "It wasn't your friend, it was my boss." She screamed back. Rob shouted, "Open the door, police!" But gunfire erupted, 7 shots, then dead silence. Inside, the scene was a slaughter. The man, his wife, and their 2 children lay dead. Jane called for backup. As sirens wailed outside, Rob pulled up the coroner's message, his eyes fixed on the bottom line of the report. He immediately called for clarification. The coroner's voice was grave. The 2 boys were siblings, but not from the same father. Rob froze. They're twins. Yes, rare, but possible heteropaternal superfecundation, conceived within the same cycle, but by 2 men. That's why he didn't want Kendrick near Carla. Rob hung up, shaken. Jane, Danny and Kenny weren't of the same father. What? She whispered. How? He explained what the coroner had told him. Together, they turned toward Dave's house. Before they could move, another call came. Forensics had analyzed the truck wreck. Plastic explosives. A remote trigger. Only one man had that skill set, Dave. Explosive demolitions. Rob let out a dark laugh. The pieces were falling into place. There was only one way to confirm. They would confront him. At Dave's door, Rob heard Carla scream inside. 2 gunshots cracked. He kicked the door down. The scene froze in his vision. Dave sat on the couch, pistol in hand. Carla lay on the floor, drowning in her own blood. Kendrick was sprawled lifeless, his skull blown apart. "Police! Drop the gun!" Rob shouted. Dave swung his weapon toward Jane as she entered. 2 shots rang out. Jane cried out, clutching her shoulder. Rob fired back. Dave collapsed, dead. Rob dropped to Carla's side. She clutched a blood-stained paper. With her last breath, she whispered, Dave was Danny's father. Then her body went still. Medics fought to save her, but she was gone. Rob unfolded the paper. A DNA test from 19 years ago. A letter in Carla's handwriting. She had written, "She slept with Dave the morning he was drafted." Later, Kendrick forced himself on her. She loved Dave, but could not fight Kendrick. The DNA confirmed it. Danny was Dave's son. Kenny was Kendrick's. She kept the truth buried from Dave. On Dave's computer, Rob found hidden surveillance files, videos of Carla and Kendrick, recordings of Carla confessing Kenny's true paternity, clips of them together too close. The Dallas informant, Rob realized, had stolen the truck. But when he discovered the accident involved children, his conscience cracked. Dave silenced him, sending someone after him, documenting everything. One more thing, Dave's suspicions consumed him, twisting into rage and blind fury, until they drove him to murder even his own flesh and blood. Beyond Carla, Maria Caparino carried the weight of every secret. Carla's heart was torn in 2, caught between the man she loved and the man she had married. And Dave, he went to his grave never knowing the bitter truth that Danny was his son. Rob closed the laptop. His suspicions confirmed.